Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy family. It is Miss Laura Aisha. I'm sitting here in a little courtyard in Brooklyn, New York City, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous day here on the last day of May. We're in full-on Gemini season, and my birthday is this weekend, so super, super excited. I don't know, I'm sure some of you know, a lot of you know that I'm a twin. I'm also Gemini, so I'm a Gemini twin, which means I'm a super twin. And yeah, it has certainly created a very dynamic and fun, adventurous journey in this life. So grateful for all of it. And we've got a really beautiful conversation just about love and romance and two people coming together and choosing each other, even in the face of, awkwardness, maybe not an immediate sexual connection. This is something that is really alive for me and has been for a long time on my own journey into love and romantic relationships. So we have got Dorota and Esmond on the line with us today. You're going to enjoy this conversation and stick around till the end. We have another beautiful poem from Noel at the very end of this recording. So love you lots. Enjoy the conversation and we'll see you on the flip. What is up, Ignite Intimacy community? This is your host, Miss Laura Aisha, and I'm so grateful for technology and time and space and synchronicity because I'm on the line right now. It's 8 a.m.-ish in Brooklyn, New York City, and I'm on the line with two beautiful beings halfway across the world in Bali, where it is 8 p.m.-ish over there. And it's so cool. We're sitting here on video, staring at each other, and the connection is clear. And we're about to bring you some goods on relationship, love, intimacy, the sometimes awkwardness that happens when you first meet someone. And we're going to dive in to a topic that is very top of heart and mind, love, the heart, connecting, relating, the coming together of two beings. And what's always fascinating for me is the timing aspect of it, and something that has felt so challenging for me in my life up until this point is actually like syncing up with people that I'm also feeling a mutual connection to, and having us both be available, both be a yes, both be ready to dive in. And I haven't really had this experience full on. I don't believe I've had this experience really full on yet in my life. So it's really exciting. I can't wait to dive in with Dorota and Esmond today. What is going on, you guys? How is life in Bali?
It's been really hard, but wonderful. It's very different lifestyle. It kind of shows you how to really unplug from a normal life, society, and really forces you to reconnect to yourself. So this is definitely something. Bali is very magical. It has Balinese say feminine soul, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very free. It's a very free place to live.
Yeah.
Very anonymous. It doesn't matter what you do. It's more about who you are, which is really very refreshing. Very refreshing place to be. Having lived in London and New York and other places where people can often be very much measured and defined by what they're doing rather than who they're being. So,
totally. Yeah. I actually had the pleasure of visiting Bali 3 or 4 years ago. It was a very short trip. However, Bali touched my soul deeply and it really made an impact. I really loved being there. It's one of those places that has remained in my heart, and I very much look forward to visiting again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So Dorota and I got connected because there was the potential that she was going to travel with this group that I was traveling to Burning Man with from Los Angeles. That didn't end up happening, but I've been following you on social media and just seeing some of the work that you and Esmond have been doing with groups around, relationship and intimacy. And so we're going to dive into some of that work a little bit, but I'd love to get some background on the two of you and where do you come from? How did you meet? Give us some of those goods.
All right. Well, I grew up in Poland and then I moved to Paris, lived in Paris 6 years, finished university there, and then started a kind of nomadic lifestyle, living in 4 different continents and visited many places all around the world. And my career was mostly focused around creativity and visual arts. I was working on different projects with different people, building brands all around the world. And then at the same time, I was writing and working on my book that is on actually relationship and self-love. And then I actually ended up in Malaysia and started to work for Mindvalley, that is the biggest educational online platform. And this was the very first time when I was able to combine my passion for personal growth with actually creativity. And from that kind of place, I started to develop different movies, directed a movie on enhanced states of consciousness. And I was working alongside with beautiful Mindvalley team on putting AFES and conferences together all around the world around personal growth and different topics that we had. And on one of those events, I actually met Esmond, and it was a very special time because I literally, a week before, stopped working for Mindvalley. After 2 years, I decided to go back to being entrepreneur again, and I felt like I reached the point when I couldn't go any further career-wise, and I wanted to completely change everything in my life again. And so we met, and I literally that week packed all my things from apartment in Malaysia. I was ready to move to actually New York, and I was on a completely new journey. So when we met, it was like everything was open.
Wow.
Everything.
So we met, just to be clear, she just wrapped up her time at AFES at Mindvalley, and this was her last event at Mindvalley.
Okay.
Which is in Bali in November. And interestingly enough, I discovered Mindvalley in August last year, and I just my social feed, and I took 4 or 5 online courses through Mindvalley, which were enormously transformational in my life. And what I subsequently found out, in fact, that Dorota was the creative director at Mindvalley, so she'd been the inspiration behind the online courses I was taking. It actually featured as an interviewer in some of the online courses I'd taken without me realizing it. And I'd sent one of the videos that she created with Neil Donald Walsh to my family without even realizing that she featured in it.
Wow.
So I was very drawn and called to attend this AFES. And there was a moment before I got my ticket that I didn't think I was going to be able to get my ticket. And I started to feel a little bit of angst that I wasn't going to be able to attend this event. But anyway, it all came together. And on the second night there, was it the second night?
Yeah.
Second night, the event took a beach club called Ulu Cliff House. And being at this event was all about openness and being willing to be vulnerable and face your fear. And you've got 300 people from all around the world coming together with that intention. So it creates this extraordinary dynamic of potential for connection and intimacy you don't get in your normal life. So it's really ripe and raw and powerful for connection. And I remember the morning before I met Dorota, I'd been in an ecstatic dance, and I'd been dancing around, and I was engaging with or dancing with a woman, and I made a commitment to myself to stay in connection. So if I made contact with someone, I wasn't going to break the contact. So I made connection with a woman. I looked in her eyes, and I remember feeling really just a lot of discomfort and uncomfortable and shyness come up in me. But I was like, no, I'm going to stick with this and stay with it. So sure enough, I stayed for 10 minutes to dance, and it was beautiful because I came through one of my own fears of dancing with a woman on a dance floor. But that night, we're at a party, and it's about 10:30 in the evening, and I'm sort of meandering my way onto the dance floor, and suddenly Dorota appears from behind a speaker, and we connect. Our eyes connect with each other, and it was just magnetic. We connected, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. And because I'd given myself this commitment that I was going to stay connected, we then jived and danced together for half an hour, and we didn't lose eye contact for that full 30 minutes. And there was a great there was a great electricity, but there's also a great fear that I was feeling, and I was staying true to myself to stay in the fear and stay connected. And it was beautiful. It was a really beautiful almost timeless 30 minutes we spent together. And then the music stopped and I was still a little bit mesmerized by the whole thing. And she took some initiative and asked me to have a drink with her at the bar, where we just chatted, really beautiful and free flowing. And I just came out with everything, that I was a single father, I had a 5-year-old daughter, I lived in Bali. I just gave her my whole life story in 5 minutes, no holds barred. This is who I am.
Wow.
There is no holds barred. I'm not peacocking in any way, shape, or form.
Wow.
Here I am. Take it or leave it.
I love that. I love that.
I just thought there's no point beating around the bush. But it was really fascinating in the sense of the engagement we had together. It's always been this way. There's never been any other way but truth. And that's what's been so extremely refreshing for me.
Mm-hmm.
51-year-old man now who's had a series of long-term relationships in his life that haven't worked out or whatever, or did work out perfectly but ended, to come to this place now of real and utter truth and honesty. And it was like that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, from there, it's quite a long story, this, Laura, but I will take you through it as much as we can. So we had a beautiful connection that night, and she went home in a bus, and I went home in a bus, so we didn't see each other again. But I was eager to discover her, and I found her on Messenger and started connecting with her.
He stalked me.
I stalked her a little bit. And then the next day, during the event, there were workshops, there were speakers, and there were 3 opportunities I had to go and connect with her and give her a hug, but I was a bit shy, so I didn't, and she thought I was ignoring her, even though I was just too shy to. Right? So we had this extraordinary dynamic where she thought I was actually rejecting her, when in fact I was just trying to approach her. Until one point in the afternoon when I plucked up the courage and I sort of swung by, and we did have a hug, and it was really beautiful.
And then there was a dinner. After dinner, we met on another gathering.
Yes.
And I asked you if you wanted to have a walk on the beach.
Oh, yes, God. Yes, so again.
And so we went to the beach, and for me, so it was so obvious that this was like a perfect situation to have a first kiss. Moon, ocean, beach, dark. And so he kept 3 meters from me the entire time. 3 meters.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was in this beautiful cocktail dress, like holding my high heels in my hands, like perfect scene from a movie. No, he just stayed there. He couldn't even engage like
I felt like a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was extraordinary.
This is so interesting. Well,
it's fascinating.
It's interesting because I've actually been experiencing something with someone where I felt this distance with them. And I asked, like, what is going on with you, you know? And he said, I like you. I like you a lot.
Right.
And then I have been asking people in my life, mostly men, some women, if a man acts like this, what do you think that means? And most of them have said, he's not thinking about you. He's not, he's not into you. And I'm like, but what if he's just afraid?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this story as it evolves, you'll see it is exactly that. It was extreme shyness.
And I want to add here, because I truly believe that actually you are unable to see the person for who they truly are in the first week. Like, it's almost impossible. We all wear some sort of mask, consciously or unconsciously, and more afraid and intimidated we are by somebody, more we put all these defenses and protections on us. And it really, in our case, I really thought that was not going anywhere. This was not going anywhere. And it turned to, I was so wrong, because I realized once all the mask and all the protection were gone, I realized very quickly that this was the love of my life. So I want to encourage everybody to really give some time on the beginning to really be sure what this person's truth is, because sometimes it's stronger than us when we are an introvert, when we are shy and all of this, we just can't behave normally.
Well, I'm going to continue the story here, just because we wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you if I wasn't willing to be with my discomfort and my fear and my anxiety to go through with it. Because on the way back from the beach, having missed my opportunity, which was very clear to me at that point that I had missed it and I was kicking myself, was the realization neither of us wanted to go back to the party. We weren't drinking. And I really wanted to hang out with her. I was really enjoying her company and her conversation. And I said to her, I just said to her completely out of the blue, I said, listen, would you like to come back to my room with me? And it was totally out of place and out of context, but I really meant it genuinely, that I wanted to continue our conversation. And she was quite taken aback by the fact that I'd asked this question after we'd had this rather awkward moment on the beach. And she sat with it for about a minute and she said, yes. I think she says something about not having an expectation. Yeah. I said, no expectations whatsoever. So up we went and we chatted away for another hour and it was beautiful. And then came another moment of truth, which was the conversation lulled. And it was about, and I was like, well, would you like to spend the night with me? And I said, and she looked at me and she said, you can't say that. You haven't built a bridge. And what did I do? I put my hand on her leg to build a bridge. That was my bridge building. That was my gesture of romance. And then she said to me, I suppose you're going to get me some pajamas now. I said, what did I do? I went to the cupboard and I got her some pajamas and gave them to her. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. And she said, this is the most awkward experience I've ever been in. And I said, I know, me too. It was horrific. And at that point, I kissed her. And the kissing dissolved a little bit of this chronic sort of fear or shyness that actually I've never experienced in my entire life.
Yeah. What was that about for you?
It's such a good question. I wasn't drinking at all. And I think I really had feelings for Dorota. I know I really had feelings for her for the moment I set my eyes on her. And that frightened me. That really frightened me. I was like, what is this? This is really powerful. What does all of this mean? And we've explored a lot of this since then, but it was a fear of something great, actually. It was a fear of something great, but it was also the fear of something great that also drove me to come through my fear in order to see what was the other side. And that's been the greatest gift of this whole experience, is our willingness to notice our fear, be with it, and go beyond it, because there's absolute magic the other side.
Well, and so I'm curious from, the man's perspective, because I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because I don't believe that men have been given the space to be anything but, I need to chase, I need to lead, I need to be the front runner, and, I do the choosing. Right. And something that I have shared a lot on the podcast, and just that I've been told a lot in my life, is like, you need to allow men to chase you. Men need to chase. Men need, this. Don't be too forward. If men are acting like this, it means they're not interested in you. And I think there are a lot of stories about how men show up or don't show up in relationships that actually it's not true.
I'm so glad you bring this up. I'm so glad you bring this up. I'm so glad, because I think we need to be having a conversation about how to completely reframe these whole ideas of gender dynamic and roles, and it's nonsense, because I find myself as a very masculine man really embodying so many feminine qualities, and it's completely changing my life and my to feel life. And my life is changing because I'm willing to be the sissy. I'm willing to be the wimp. I'm willing to be the boy that cries. And it's rewarding the depth of connection and intimacy that I could never have fathomed before I made the decision to start this journey. So I love that you raise that, because it's so fundamental to the work that we're doing, and my belief that we as men are missing out on so much of life because we're not even aware that we can feel. That is the primary thing. We're not even aware that we can feel, because we were taught for such a long time that boys didn't feel, and boys don't cry. And I created so many of my own limiting beliefs that prevented me and shut me down from feeling my whole life until recently. And I've been unraveling them all and allowing myself to become more aware of what's possible in my life, because I'm willing to feel everything. So I really love that you've raised that. And it's a message that I really want to share with as many men as possible, to have a look at it, to turn back inward, and to realize that there's such a beautiful universe available to men and women alike. I know that you women know about it, and I know that I'm just discovering it, and I really want to share that with as many men as possible.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so Dorota, I know you were about to jump in with something there, but just in the meantime, I'm curious, what has the experience been like for you? And in your past, did you tend to attract more, forward men or aggressive men, or like men who were chasing, or have you, attracted men that had more of this softness and more of these vulnerable qualities? What has been your experience with men? And then also, your experience with Esmond in his journey to open up.
I've been always a chaser. All my life, I've been a chaser. Because I did a lots of work, let's say, in masculine, feminine energy. And I think since emancipation of women, we learned that sometimes we have to step into our masculine energy in order to achieve things. And we use it in order to achieve things. And a lot of women started to believe that is something wrong, that it's something bad to be masculine. And I think it's not the case. I think sometimes we really need that energy in order to set, achieve certain goals and get into the direction we want to get. But what's really important is to keep a balance between both, because what the relationship needs is a polarity. So that's what creates that special magnetic energy that attracts to people. It's really the polarity between them, and the dance of two energies means that allowing men to step into his feminine when he needs to, and allowing ourselves to be in our masculine when we need to feel that energy as well. But so knowing that I always was a chaser in my life, I actually did a tremendous amount of work after my last relationship to kind of find that balance, to put myself back into my feminine, to rebuild a relationship with my feminine without rejecting my masculine that brought me where I am today. And that big part of that was letting go, was trusting. Mm-hmm. Whatever is supposed to happen will happen, not chase anymore, allowed things to come to me. And this is what happened with Esmond. I simply let go. I completely trusted. If it's supposed to be something, well, then it will happen. And it wasn't any calculated behavior from my side, in the sense if I felt like inviting him for a drink, I would. But I wouldn't put any pressure. I think what women do many times, we meet a man and unconsciously we kind of tick the boxes right away. Is he like this? Is he like that? Can he be a father of my kids? Can I build a family potential with him? And more boxes he ticks, more we give him a chance without really even knowing the person. Honestly, it's ridiculous. What I decided to do is to remove all of the boxes that I had. I would used to never date a man with a child, for example. But then I asked myself, why? It's actually a gift to be able to have somebody in your life who will love you. And it's another person that you can love and who will love you back. It's a bonus. And I think everything can be reframed like that and looked at completely differently. So I kind of removed all the boxes I had before. And I just trusted that life has a plan, and that every person we meet on our way is the exactly right person, because it's the reflection of us in this specific moment. And we reject those people. It's simply because we don't want to look inside ourselves and see the truth about ourselves. So for me, it was very different relationship that this one that I would normally have, because I changed drastically in the year before we met. And I put so much intention, so much work on really discovering who I am truly, and kind of being open to see all the parts of myself, including shadows, including all the parts that I would normally reject and protect with my masks. And so I was like, all right, I meet you. I feel this strong connection. What can I learn about myself through that relationship, through that experience? And I kind of left the door completely open. But to be honest, like on the beginning, when it got so awkward, I was simply thinking, well, maybe we are not really compatible, because I got my pajama, we kissed, but it didn't really work. Like the kiss wasn't a great kiss. There was no chemistry there. So we went to sleep. We didn't have sex. We went to sleep. I woke up in the morning and I literally ran from the room because I had to gather my thoughts. So I was typically like a man who left in the morning and like, I'll see you. and I need to just gather my thoughts. Oh my God, what if we are not compatible? But again, like such a great reminder. It's like, yes, might happen that you have a great connection right away, then you have a great intimacy, but intimacy is something that develops.
Yeah.
And great sex is also something that when you work on and develop and go through all the fantasy, it can be absolutely, it can change drastically.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that is so flexible and so, what's the word, when you can really shape it, depending on how open you are to hear the feedback and hear the fantasy of other person, and without taking anything personally,
express yourself and say what you want and what you like, and just fully express yourself.
Yes. And that takes time. And I mean, I was thinking yesterday, and I've thought about this through the years, Sade has that song, It's Never As Good As the First Time. And I find myself on occasion, it'll just come into my space, or I'll hear it and I'll be like, that is so not true, like not always, right? Like there's sometimes when you first connect with someone and it's like, oh my God, like, wow, okay, that kiss was amazing or whatever. And there are other times when I've been with someone, kissed them, we start to get into some intimacy, and the first time is not so great. And then I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know if there's compatibility here. And then we'll be together again. And it's like mind blowing. Like it's like the total opposite. Right. Yeah. So it is. I mean, there is a level, and it's certainly different with every scenario. But when you can, when there's space to try again. And So, okay. So tell us more.
So important. Well, what happened next? It's kind of, we hang out on AFES. Nothing really happened after that. And I left. Well, no,
that's not
actually.
True at all. No, we went to the closing party at AFES, and I'd sent her a picture of the pajamas as like a bridge builder, and she thought that was really funny. So we spent another night together. But again, it was late. We were tired. Nothing happened. But there's also a backstory to all of this, which I'll tell in a little bit. But the final day, we said goodbye, and I really still liked her. I guess I hadn't been making it very clear to her because she had no inclination or idea that there was a real interest there. And I said goodbye to her. And I remember driving back in the taxi back to where I live here in Canggu. I sent her a message saying, look, don't get on your airplane. Just hang out with me in Bali for a few days. I'd really like to spend some more time with you.
Wow.
And she couldn't because she had to go back to KL and pack up her apartment. And then she was flying to Belgium to give a TEDx talk in Liège. And I said, well, I invited her. And we chatted for a couple of days, and I invited myself. I said, listen, I want to come to Belgium and listen to you give your TEDx talk. Can I come? And she liked the idea, but she had a friend of hers coming to support her, and she wanted to check with her friend that it was okay if I came. And the friend wasn't quite as keen as she was to see me, so she said no. So I said, this is fine. I said, well, what are you doing after Belgium? And she said, well, I'm going to Barcelona for 5 days before I get on a cruise across the Atlantic. And I said, well, I'm going to fly to Barcelona and meet you. And she's like, okay.
Wow.
So I flew to Barcelona. I booked us a hotel, and we had 4 days together, the 12th to the 16th of November. But so we got there. We met in Barcelona airport, and she'd come in from Belgium. I'd come in from Bali. We were both bricking ourselves. There was such nervousness. And we had an awkward kiss, waiting for the bags. Didn't really know what to say, but there was a bit more excitement. There was a bit more frisson. There was a bit more tension. Right? It was. For me, anyway. I'm sure she may tell you a different story. But we went to the hotel and we dropped our bags there, and then we went down to have a coffee in the Starbucks. And this is a really powerful story here, because this story changed my life. The fact that we weren't actually more intimate in Bali is because I have had a fear of physical intimacy, or I had a fear of physical intimacy with women my entire life. From the moment I first had a sexual experience at 16, where it didn't go, let's say, quite as I had expected, I actually had suffered from a performance anxiety my whole life.
Wow.
Right? I had a physical fear of being intimate and actually having sex with women my entire life. And I'd drink alcohol, I'd take Viagra, I'd take drugs, I'd avoid situations. I was terrified of putting myself in a situation where I may be less than a man because I couldn't perform, right?
Wow.
So this is something I carry my whole life. And I met Dorota and I was like, well, fuck it. And I never told anyone. I never told a soul for 24 years. And I was like, well, there's no better chance now. I really like this woman, so I might as well be honest for the first time in my life. And we went downstairs and had a coffee. And I said, listen, I've got to share something with you really vulnerable. I'm really scared about, the next 4 days because I've got a real terror that I can't perform. I won't be able to get it up, keep down, and be laughed at. And she receives this information. And what's so funny about this? She's secretly relieved to hear it because then she thinks there's nothing wrong with her from our interactions at Bali, right? And I'm obviously like, oh my God, I've just shared this biggest secret of my life. And she's received it in such a gentle way. She's like, no problem.
I was we'll like, that's it?
We'll take it slowly.
No problem.
The most powerful thing about this is that if the 16-year-old boy in me had said that to his partner, his first partner, 24 years ago, I would never have had an issue. But because I felt and thought as a man, I had to be strong and I had to be able to deliver and be powerful and be a lover and all of this crap, I didn't. What I did is I kept it a secret. I didn't tell my truth. And it stayed in my consciousness and it festered and it grew and it grew until the fear became a reality in my life. I told Dorota this truth and sneakily, I actually took Viagra the next 2 nights, right? But on the third night, the last night, I didn't. And we had a very vulnerable moment. I can't remember exactly what it was that we said, but we connected at a level that was extraordinarily deep. I cried, she cried, and we connected together and we fell down to the bed holding each other and we cried for about 2 hours and we felt a feeling that we both, neither of us had felt before in this life, but it was an extraordinary familiar feeling of coming home. We cried, and then we made love. And for the first time in my life, I made love without Viagra, without alcohol, without drugs, or without fear. And since then, I've been completely healed because I'd expressed a truth, I'd expressed a fear, I'd expressed a vulnerability. And so that was a major part of my realization of just the power of vulnerability to transform my life. Just by speaking a truth. I'm scared, just admit it. Just admit it. Because in the admission of the fear, it allows it to come through, pass, and go. And the other side of that is, Christ, it's freedom, in my experience.
Oh my gosh, that is
a story, which is amazing. And then we decided from there. A week later, I asked her to come to South Africa and spend Christmas with my whole family. So she got off she sailed from Barcelona to Brazil. Then she flew from Brazil to Johannesburg to meet me and my
wow.
The first time in 23 years. Spent 8 days. We were sleeping in the same room as my 5-year-old daughter. And then we went and spent Christmas in Paris together. Then we went to Poland to meet her parents. And I asked her in Africa.
Oh my gosh.
I asked her to move to Bali and live with me in Africa. And so she moved here in January the 12th. And so it's been a pretty amazing story. And that was kind of just the beginning that got us here together. And then since then, it's just been this crucible and this furnace of processing of so many of the lies that we both have, and beliefs that we hold about relationships and about men and women that have just got in the way of our true intimacy. And we've both been willing to express them very truthfully to one another the whole way through so we can both shine the light of the lie to dispel the lie. And invariably, that's what happens. If we have the courage to stand up and say what we really think and feel and fear, just make space for it to dissolve.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. You are not the only one. I know in my heart of hearts that there are millions of men around the globe suffering with thinking that they're not enough, that they don't measure up, that they're not great men, that they're not worthy of the greatness of the women that are in their lives, that they don't know how to perform sexually, that they don't, they're not, I mean, I think some people are equipped with just naturally knowing how to physically please someone. And I think that there are a lot of people who are not naturally equipped to just know what to do, right? Or there's performance anxiety, which stems from God only knows what, we all have, if you're a human being on planet Earth, you've got some stuff that you're here to work through and evolve through and, transform. And, for each of us, it's different. And I just, so I'm so grateful for this conversation, because there's a lot that has seemed like it's a mystery with men and why men show up in certain ways and why men will show all sorts of interest and then they disappear and they don't return your calls and they don't, and I'm actually in this major transformation right now around love, around an old story that I picked up somewhere along the way, that I don't matter, that I'm forgettable, that I'm not special enough because I haven't been able to hold a man, and it's been this painful, heartbreaking story that I have carried with me my whole life. And I am just having this awakening right now on a whole nother level, like very deep, clear level, that it's like, there's so much more involved than, well, first of all, I'm unforgettable and I am special. And, these are things that I actually know. I know who I am. I know what I bring. And then how do I create space to say, like, well, that is a human being in my mix that has all their own layers and all their own stories and everything that they're dealing with. And I may only know 0.5% of what they're actually dealing with right now, and so taking the onus off of me and just saying, like, well, is this someone who is capable of loving me in the way that I desire to be loved, and also to be open to receiving my love? And if the answer is no, then being able to gracefully release it. I just know that there's, in relationships, so much going on that if you don't have two people who are willing to be open and vulnerable with each other, there's going to be a lot of mystery. There's going to be a lot of story making and you keep using this word bridge, trying to bridge the gaps, trying to fill in the holes. And I don't want to fill in the holes anymore. I want to be journeying in with men who are willing to trust me and to be open and to say, like, actually, this is why I haven't called you, or this is why I disappeared, or, and I actually have been in a process of releasing someone, and, he said, it's not you, it's me. And, there's a part of me that wants to fight and say, but it is me, because if it wasn't me, if something were different about me, maybe you would choose me. What I'm realizing is, like, just hear him, and receive that. Like, it's not you, it's me, and allow him to own that, and allow yourself to know the beauty that you be in the world and in love and relationships. And there's like this thing about having so much love to give and just so deeply desiring to connect in real time with my mate, and just wondering, when is that going to happen? And when can I, like, have that? And that's, largely why I started this podcast, is because I have been on this solo journey for most of my life. And, although I've had lots of lovers and friends, I haven't really had a lot of long-term relationships. So, it's always a mystery to me how the timing syncs up to allow two people to choose each other. And, and it's just so beautiful. And I'm really grateful for this conversation today, and so deeply grateful, Esmond, to have the male perspective, because we've had men on the podcast but we certainly have had more women. And so it's just so awesome to have the male perspective. So Dorota, I'm really curious about, how this all impacted you, what your experience was, and what was where were you at when you were receiving this information, and what was that like for you internally?
It just wasn't a problem.
In
the sense that, I know it is working, that I know it's something we can always work on. It's not something fixed. Intimacy and sexuality is never something fixed. So I knew that if we give it a time, attention, and enough of care, it was going to resolve itself, And so in this specific situation, I think from the moment when he was very vulnerable, it's just my heart completely open to receive. And I found it so beautiful that he was just honest, and it made me like him so much more. And made me trust him so much more. And it opened parts of me that were closed. The parts of me that now were ready to open up again and be vulnerable at the same level. And so our intimacy has been a really beautiful journey of exploration, of kind of him, losing his virginity again and trying to explore everything. But while during that time, I actually, how we attract always people. We always attract people at the level we are at. And so I was asking myself, all right, well, if we had that problem, how, what attracted that problem? What part of me, who always thought I was, sexually pretty aware and conscious person, who always had beautiful experiences, let's say, I kept asking myself this question. And I realized one day that I was still holding a lot of shame in my body. To not be too much of a woman, to not be too sexual, to not be, to just not cross that little very thin line between actually being sexy and being a slut. And when I was participating once at the conference, when a woman asked people in the room, all the men, like, whoever lied about the number of partners they had. And on the men's side, maybe few men raised their hands. On the female side, or almost every woman did. And it was so eye-opening, because I realized how much shame we have around the numbers of partners we sleep with because of the social pressure, right? And so I was digging in myself, and one day I was meditating in the morning, and I asked my consciousness to show me where this shame is coming from. And it showed me a situation that I completely erased from my memory when I was 11 years old, when I really liked this boy in a school. And because, it was too early to even kiss or have anything intimate, we just started to hang out. We would go and do bicycle together and all of that. And then somebody spread a gossip that I was a slut, that I was sleeping with. And it went, all around the school. And I was so terrified. I remember I was so devastated how people could say something like this. And at first I thought he did that. And I thought he spread that gossip. And this memory completely disappeared from my life. I couldn't even remember that such a situation happened until the day of this meditation. And I can't even tell you how much my whole energy shifted sexually. And I thought I was already pretty conscious sexually. I wasn't, because there was all part of me that was watching myself. If I'm looking good, if I'm performing good, if my body is in the right position, if I'm sexy enough, I never actually let myself to let go, completely forget myself in the act until that moment. And my whole sexual life changed from that moment, because for the very first time, I was like, fuck it. I want to have a full pleasure.
And that shifted the energy between us two. It was extraordinary because this pleasure principle became alive that hadn't existed before. Beautiful. There's just so much more there to be felt.
Oh, yeah. And to explore and to discover, you know, it's like when you have two people who are being open and, you know, saying yes to each other, it's like, wow, you can really start to discover the depths and the spaces and places that, you know, have been closed or shut down for so long. And I think it's like, even like I was recently in a space, sharing a space with someone that I care deeply about. And I noticed that he seemed to, because I have had some pee shyness, like if I'm in a public restroom or if I'm in a man's home and I'm still like getting comfortable with them, I might be sensitive about just relaxing and going to the bathroom easily, you know? And I noticed, I could tell that he was having this issue. And so I just talked to him about it, you know, and I said, you know, I have had this issue and I so want you to feel comfortable, you know, when you're here and so I gave him a trick that I use that helps me just relax and go to the bathroom. And there was something that opened up there, you know.
Beautiful.
And because in the past I might be like weird about it and like, oh man, like, you know, just not saying anything. And I'm finding so much freedom, so much more connection when I can actually just be like, hey, are you uncomfortable? Or like, how could I help you be more comfortable? You know?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So okay, I love you too. This is amazing. Bali. Okay, I'm coming to Bali 2020. I will see you there. So before we kind of wrap up here, I would love for you to share about the work that you two have started doing together around relationships and intimacy. So just share a little bit about that with our audience so they can get the world of what you're creating together.
When we moved in together, it wasn't always, you know, beautiful and positive and, you know, flowers.
Well, that's a farce, right? That's kind of like a farce. It's because we're here in real life. Like,
exactly.
Hello, real life, two dynamic human beings with all their stuff.
And we had all this self-sabotaging program that came out in order to protect us from the other person. Numbness, rejection, leaving and flying back to Europe, and all these different programs. And so we would always talk about this and brainstorm and really try to go deeper in order to help ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we would write about it. We would start to write articles about it and publish it. And it really got amazing feedback. And it looked like it really was helping people. So we started very small. We started to do a transformational relating training here in Bali. And it just was like a hit. Like every single person wanted more. And every single person wanted to like either like personal coaching or retreat or like they wanted to explore more of those tools that we came up with. And that was the moment I think we realized we were up to something. So we started more workshop, and then we created company on transformational relating that is called NYOUDE. And we are planning to do retreats and different events all around the world in that field to really help people. And we are like, it's really important to say we are not consider ourselves, you know, experts. We are giving people all the tools that we have learned that worked for us.
Yes.
And if it might help anybody, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no golden rule. There is whatever works for you.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
Important. So it's two people coming together to create third. So people should never commit actually to each other. They should commit to the relationship, to love, self, and then invest in that.
Yeah.
And different people will have different, you know, way of functioning, different love languages, different attachment style. And all of that has to be considered and discussed. And then you need to build that bridge in order to meet, right?
Yeah.
And yes, sharing our own experiences in a very candid and vulnerable and truthful way, we find is like the biggest permission slip for other people, just to consider that resonance within themselves and to really just realize that it's okay. Like you said earlier, just to realize that we're not alone. And that invariably the person sitting opposite us and actually the 10 people in our surroundings at some level are all experiencing the same thing in their own experience in a different way. And I look at this in my own experience, because of my own journey of my own unraveling as a man and all the numbness and coming out of my mind and back into my body and the experiences I'm having. It's all about finding the language to relate to myself, to relate to my own emotional universe, to come to an awareness. I actually know that I have to feel my pride and let it go, to feel the humility that lies underneath. I have to be willing to be vulnerable in order to experience a depth of connection that I never have. And that means actually having the courage to speak my truth about how I'm feeling, regardless of how I'm received by the other person. So one of my sabotaging programs, has been throughout my whole life, is to actually lose physical attraction for my partner. And so Dorota and I have this extraordinary connection that allows the space for me, when I'm in my program, just to say it. So right now, I'm actually repulsed by you, because this is one of my programs, which if you think about it, incredibly effective, because you tell any woman you're repulsed by her, she's going to run a bloody mile. But because of the understanding that we had together about truth and about these programs, we're both willing to stay present with each other to explore them to their dissolution, because they are bloody lies.
Wow.
They are very, very clever subconscious programs to protect me from what I desire most, which is love. So I've had all of these extraordinary dynamic ways to push people away from me so they can't abandon me. Because if I'm doing the old heave-ho, I'm going to be safe. But with all of this,
I can relate to that.
with all of the learning of the programs, there still comes a point where we have to be willing to turn back in ourselves and feel the unfelt emotions. And so, unknown emotions. And so what we're really coming to as our trainings are changing now is to bring people to the awareness that it's safe to turn back in and feel themselves, because that's really where the alchemy and the transmutation and the miracles occur.
Wow. Yeah. That just struck a chord for me. So I've had this fear that I will get into a relationship with someone. And this is one of the many programs that has kept me single, and that I'll lose interest in them very quickly. And then I'll have to go through like, actually, I'm not feeling you anymore or whatever. And then on the flip side, I have programming, which is so perfect because I'm Gemini and I'm a twin, and my whole life is like these dualities, as all of ours are. It's like on the flip side, I have this fear that has kept me single, that all of the things that you once loved about me, you will start to hate about me. And
both
so
brilliant strategies, Laura. Both of them. Amazing. So creative. So creative. Wow. How's that been serving you?
So it's like, do I want what am I having what I want? And if I'm not, then where is the programming, and where have I gotten myself caught up in some bullshit ass crap that I'm like keeping myself single? Like I've literally been longing for love and connection, and I've been keeping myself single. You know.
Well done, you.
Okay. So there's so much more to say, so much more to discover with you two. I can't wait to meet you in person. I'm like, I want to be in some of these gatherings and retreats. So, and who knows, perhaps with my man, wherever he is, somewhere out there in the world. And in my heart, I can feel him. And so how can people find you online? Like, how can people connect with you in the interwebs or through the interwebs?
Our website is NYOUDE.ventures. So it will be probably in the description. And this is our official website for our transformational relating. And then on this website, people can find our individual website as speakers and coaches and trainers by our name, simply DorotaStanczyk.com and EsmondBaring.com. com. Yeah, and
Great.
this is where we will have all the information about upcoming trainings, retreats, and everyone can contact us as well for individual coaching.
Great.
We are doing coaching, and we also do personal life coaching, both of us. So it's for both of them, one of us, and it's really depends on what energy resonates with them. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so it is NYOUDE.ventures. That's how you can find them online. Are you Instagram? Are you?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Travel Artie.
And I'm Esmond Baring, ESMOND BARING.
Great. Okay. And we'll have those links in the show notes. Esmond and Dorota, thank you so much for being here, for joining us, for being so beautifully vulnerable on this call today, and for doing the work that you do in the world, for saying yes, even though it was awkward and uncomfortable and unclear, and, for seeing through that and taking risks. And now here we are, 8-9 months later, and you guys are living in Bali. You're creating work in the world that's supporting others to open up and become more deeply vulnerable with themselves, with each other. I'm just so grateful for this connection, so grateful for this conversation. Thank you for being, and I very much look forward to connecting in the flesh someday soon.
Thank you
Laura,
so much.
Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing. You're beautiful. Thank you.
Yes.
We'll stay in touch and ignite intimacy. You heard it here. I hope this was as powerful a conversation for you as it has been for me and for us. And stay tuned. We will see you on the next one. Lots of love, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Sleep well. Sweet dreams.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Ciao for now.
Okay, that was a beautiful conversation. I am in my own process right now of having my heart cracked wide open and just being in the energy of it all. And I'm in a huge transformational process, really around knowing more than ever how I am the source of my experience. I am the source of my life. I am the source of what I choose. I am the source of my experience. We've got a plane going overhead. And so having Dorota and Esmond on the line today was part of my continual healing and opening up journey. Opening up my heart, committing to loving and loving fully and loving myself and taking care of myself as my number one, and loving others and opening my heart and being the love that I desire to experience and receive in life. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. And we will love it if you pop over to iTunes, leave us a rating and a review, and keep sharing this with your friends. It's so wonderful to hear your reflections and how these conversations are impacting you and your lives. So thank you for being here with us on this journey. Lots of love and light to you and yours. And we will see you on the next one. Stay blessed and ciao for now. And here is a next poem from Noel.
It takes time. You do not yet know the lengths that I would go for the dirt, the moss, the spiders in my heart. You do not yet know the lengths I would go at both the altar and the pyre for our connection and my own. How could you know how far I will go with my appetites? How could you possibly know that when I swallow my biggest bite of myself, I'm allowing you in too?
Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.